So, 4 components really to the next few minutes. Just want to set the context. I know as B2Bers, we hate seeing details on consumer digital activity, but I'm just going to show you 2 slides to set the context, because business buyers are people too. So the fact that we are using digital and social technologies more in our personal life actually does spill over, of course, into our business life. We know that. So I'll show you a few slides on that. I want to talk about the ROI. Everybody talks about ROI. All of our clients talk about ROI. Where's the ROI? And I want to talk a little bit about that, because at the moment, being a socially enabled business is unproven. You know, it's an intuition. There are some great tactical uplifts that we'll talk about, but it's really an intuition. And if you're a customer-centric company, then you need to do the stuff I'm going to be talking about today. And if you're not, then you're not going to believe it. So it starts with intuition and then builds into KPIs. Then we're going to look at the building blocks. I'm going to whistle through them quite quickly, and then a slide on how to progress. So a couple of what you could call motherhood and apple pie slides, if you like. We all know we're spending much more time on digital. So 33% of our time is spent in digital media. Of course, these statistics now are blurry because you can see TV through digital media. So it's tough for some of these stats to be clear, I think, as we move forward. But, you know, the advertisers haven't kept pace with where our eyeballs are. So if we're watching TV or we're on digital media, the advertisers should probably be there. And you can see on the right-hand table that the advertising spend is still very small in digital. But it's increasing, and it's increasing almost exponentially. Did you know that this year, 2012, there is more spend in digital than on TV in the UK? For the first time. So this is the crossover point, which is interesting. In the US, it's a little bit behind. In probably about 3 years' time, it'll overtake TV. But in the UK, digital advertising spend is now higher than TV. And of course, a lot of our digital time is spent social. So, you know, social media is a big activity. And of course, social media is Facebook, it's LinkedIn, it's YouTube, it's blogs, it's communities. It's not just Facebook for, you know, for personal use. There's a number of things we do on digital, but social media is one of the biggest. So, huge trend to digital, huge trend to social. And mobile, of course, is huge. In 2 years' time, 70-odd%, I think it's 75, 76% of business buyers will have a smartphone in 2 years' time. Tablet sales outsold PCs last year for the first time. If you've done or seen any research on the way tablets are used, people do stuff on their mobile, but of course it's a very small screen. Tablets are changing the way we consume media, and they're changing the way people access sites and the way people buy things. So e-commerce stats through a mobile are tough, but you put it on an iPad or a tablet of some sort, and it changes it. So as tablets increase in penetration, we're going to see a lot greater change in the use of digital and what we use digital for. Admiral Insurance did a survey. They said to their customers, if there was a fire, what was the first thing you'd pick up and save? And they gave a few options. One was your pet, one was your mobile, one was your wallet, I think one was your spouse. And of course, as you can probably tell from this, what came out on top was the mobile phone. So 51 or 52% of people would choose the mobile phone. Whenever I talk this, I ask you to put your hands up, and no one ever admits to that. People always say, oh, my spouse or my pet. But actually, the mobile phone is the first thing people would grab. So people sleep with their mobile phones. We did a session last night, and about half of the audience... Who sleeps with their mobile phone? Hands up. Yeah, about half the audience. Yeah.
Not exclusively.
Not exclusively, yeah. Well, there you go. But you know, the relevance to business is that business customers are people too. So digital, social, mobile use, business customers use that stuff. And it's interesting that mobile is blurring work and home time. So tasks we traditionally did at work, we now do in front of the TV. You know, we pick up emails, we do some searching, we look at LinkedIn for the people we're seeing tomorrow. We do that stuff in social situations and on trains. And that's blurring, and I really like some of these stats here. And by the way, when you download the presentation, there's some notes underneath this as to where the stats came from. But 90%, you know, whether it's 90 or whatever, but a large percentage of business executives start their path to purchase finding out about products, services, recommendations, they start online. Most buying cycles are almost complete, or majority complete, before they want to see a salesperson. Content is king. The average cost of a sales lead, an inbound sales lead, i.e. content is out there and has generated inbound activity, is $143 versus $373 for outbound. So business buyers are people too, so these things affect them. And the bottom one there, your colleagues, and that means people in your supply chain, partners and guys you work with, are also digital, social, and mobile. So they are used to sharing and collaborating and working in a way which makes sense to them. And a socially enabled business, if it needs to understand what its customers want, and if it needs to understand where the issues are in the organization, needs to tap into that enormous amount of knowledge that exists within your people and your partners, your supply chain, your delivery chain. I think my last company, we had an assessment tool that we used, and we went out to assess how organizations manage customers, and that was our way of saying to them, well, you're very strong here, you're very weak here, here's where you need to act. Probably 70–80% of the insight we got on how they could improve on customer management came from the customer-facing people, the contact centers, the salespeople, the delivery people, maybe some of the supply chain partners, the people that have day-to-day interactions with customers. You know, most of the insight came from those guys because they do it every day. Office Depot is one of our... anyone from Office Depot here, or Viking Direct? They were one of our clients, and something like 20,000 in Europe, 20,000 interactions a day coming through from customers, and that might be a contact center, or it might be an inbound session on the web, or it might be a delivery, where there's information exchange. Now, most of that information is probably irrelevant to the organization, it's just business as usual. But some of it we can tap into, and if we don't tap into it in a way which employees are comfortable with, if we just have like an employee comment scheme, so I'll fill it out on a piece of paper and put it in a box, that doesn't work in a modern organization. It doesn't need to work. We can do it better than that. We can do it through social tools. So the collaboration thing is really important. There's so much insight that exists in your organization. Never mind listening to customers even at this stage. Just within your organization, there's so much insight. B2B, B2C similarities. This is from Ogilvy Loyalty Index. Similar, basically. I mean, we know business buyers are more price conscious. They are less likely to have one favorite supplier they always use. But generally, they will buy on engagement, which means a functional and emotional thing. They're people. People buy from people. So I was going to build this slide, but I just thought it would take too long and have a look at it. But these are the things that we think a socially enabled business is. And I'm going to go on and give you some examples of some of these things in a second. So first of all, yes, of course, it uses digital, media, social, and mobile channels to engage with customers. And win, keep, and develop is something that we'll come back to in this presentation, because everything that we're doing around customer centricity is designed actually to not just engage customers, but to win sales and to win revenue and to reduce costs if we can. So digital media and mobile channels can be used to win new customers, to keep customers longer through better engagement, and to develop their value with you. It means using structured and unstructured data. So structured data would be stuff that comes in sales transactions and on the website. Unstructured is the data you can't categorize easily, which often occurs in social sites. But it means combining that. I might mean combining it at an account level, where an account manager checks his client's LinkedIn status or Twitter feed just before he goes to see them. I mean, as an account manager in the past, you wonder what you can talk to customers about. You need to call them, and you wonder what you can talk to them about, or find out what they're saying socially, and you maybe have a topic of conversation there. Unstructured data might be used to pull out information on a key account, so not on a particular client, but on a key account. Maybe we use unstructured information to look at some of the sector issues around the clients we're dealing with. Or maybe we look at what people are saying about our brand. And we'll see a couple of these examples in a moment. So structured and unstructured data can be at a very personal level, or it can be at a more of an industry, brand, and sector level. Always on, near real-time capability is something that we're seeing more and more of. If we want to engage with customers, we have to offer relevant contextual communications. That means understanding their likes, their interests, where they are potentially through GPS, and targeting communications based on that knowledge. You've heard a lot about that already today in some of the breakout sessions as well. It's always on because if you're content marketers and you have content out there, people can interact with that content on that website at any time. So, do we want to react to that? Do we want to wait till 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, or do we want to react to it earlier? Well, maybe you haven't got to react to stuff immediately, but the idea of campaigns, we're on a 3-month campaign, another 3-month campaign, is really, still happens, but it's relatively old thinking, and content is effectively always on. Learning throughout the organization. It's interesting I'll show an example in a second with Ford. And Ford were listening to what their customers were saying, their consumers were saying effectively, and finding out that one of the Ford models had real safety concerns, even though the structure is the Ford car, the KA. The structure of it is very strong, but people were worried about it. People were worried about the safety of it, and that was coming up in some of the sites. So they could interact with the sites pretty much immediately, but they could also aggregate that information up and package it for the dealers so that when people came into the dealers, they can either raise it as a subject, which is, that's up to the dealer to do that, or if their consumer said, I'm a bit worried about the safety of that, they'd have some ready, frequently asked question type answers for that. So I think learning throughout the organization, some learnings will come into marketing, some will go out to the dealerships or the channels, some might go to PR, of course, on the brand side, and it needs to spread throughout the organization. We ran a LinkedIn poll on the IDM site about whether you think social affects the whole organization or mostly marketing, and you'll see the results of that in a second. Generally you or whoever responded to that believe that socially enabled business does affect most departments in the company. Innovation, sharing and agility, that's really getting your people, your employees, your colleagues to help you with ideas to improve customer experience or to reduce cost or get ideas to market more quickly. This is a key thing. So this is all outbound facing, if you like. This moves more now to getting your organization to work with you, to be more agile, to say, hey, here's an idea, this is going wrong. When we deliver this to the customer doesn't like it or can't use it because of the instruction booklet's wrong. Let's feed that back in very quickly so that we can do something about it more quickly, not in 6 months' time, but more quickly. So the idea of agility and workflow, as somebody mentioned earlier, is really critical to a socially enabled business. And of course, large organizations find that really, really difficult. Agility and workflow is not what large organizations do. It's much easier for a small business to be socially enabled. Peer-to-peer community and collaboration is where we get customers involved in stuff. And we get customers involved with customers. And there's a number of examples in business to business where forums and community sites are set up where customers help each other. A customer will pose a query and other customers will answer it. And that can be moderated or facilitated by the company carefully. But that can be a very engaging tool, plus all the way through to collaboration and participation. A couple of examples of those coming up as well. Basically, these things give us a customer-centric organization. There's nothing that I'm saying here which is not, which doesn't help customer centricity. All of this is about bringing us closer to the customers and delivering stuff which improves the experience for them, which hopefully will improve the revenues for us. So it's customer centricity, but on steroids. It's quicker, it's faster, it's listening, it's doing something, but there's a brain there saying we can't just do everything, we've got to process stuff very carefully. So where's the ROI? So this is the research that we're doing. So there's only 34, N is 34. We only had 34 responses from around the world at the moment. So it's fairly young research. We'd like to get 100. We'd love you guys, particularly if you're part of large organizations, to contribute to this. And we've got various levels, which I won't go into now, of maturity in socially enablement, if you like. So basic state, you're doing very little. There's some people here doing a bit of listening, a bit of Facebook stuff, a bit of, a little bit of stuff with social generally. Here we've got colleagues talking to us and telling us about ideas, and we're beginning to embed it, social and some of the things I've talked about, in business as usual. And level 4 is where you're doing all of those things. No one's in level 4 yet because you always have to have a level that's bigger than everyone is, otherwise it's not much use as a tool. Interestingly, the best B2B is level 3, and B2B average is kind of level 2. But it's interesting that people think that B2Bs aren't socially enabled. B2Bs are socially enabled Because it's almost easier to do it in B2B than it is in B2C, because you have more customer interactions. Often in B2C, I mean, one of our clients is Coke, another one is Diageo with the alcohol, premium alcohol categories. And they don't have much dealings with consumers. They deal through the big advertising, but there's not much going on with consumers, so they find it difficult to learn from consumers. They do a lot of listening, but they find it difficult to learn. It's easier in a business-to-business environment. There are a few public case studies as yet about how socially enabled businesses might work better than others. There are some statistics from McKinsey, which I think are publicly available. I'm sure are publicly available, and they're very happy for me to mention them here. I mean, customer satisfaction increasing 18%, human resources costs decreasing primarily because, and this is an interesting one, primarily because colleagues feel more engaged if they feel involved in the process. If they feel they can influence stuff, they feel more engaged. And apparently that's reduced HR costs in the McKinsey survey. And time to market, and I've got a great example of that from Sony in a moment, decreased by 20%. So they're pretty strong headline figures. But I think, whatever those figures are, and they'll vary hugely, and I know they have, because we've tried to develop business cases for people, there's an intuitive belief that we're doing this to engage with customers in a different way, in a better way, and that will lead to us winning more, primarily through testimonials and advocacy, in keeping customers longer, in developing our value with them, and in doing it cost effectively. So that's the intuitive belief. I don't know if you probably can't read this slide down here. This is from the IBM survey, from Stretched to Strengthened, where CMOs are saying the primary reason for the shift towards digital technologies is enhanced customer loyalty and advocacy. That's why people are doing this. That's what CMOs said to the IBM guys. In terms of driving ROI, this is a McKinsey survey. This is the number one issue with online metrics, is that they do not adequately quantify the financial impact of my business. Well, we use, it's a bit of a clumsy slide, and I won't go through it in detail, but you've got it in your packs. These are the metrics that drive revenue and profit in an organization. So winning customers, you can recruit more of them, just get many more in. You can recruit higher quality ones, etc. Keeping customers, developing them, managing the costs. And innovation and PR have some benefits too with socially enabled media. So what I would suggest is that if you're thinking about moving into a socially enabled business space, or whether you're there already, think about a business case around some of these KPIs, because all of these will drive either revenue, gross margin, or operating margin in some shape or form. So think about these, because these are specific things you can measure. And these 6 areas I talked about just now about a socially enabled business will affect one or more of these things. There's a few examples here, and again, in the notes that you'll get on the back of this presentation, there's a description of all of these things and why I've put them in there. I'm just going to talk about the ones with little stars by them. Does anyone know Mumsnet? Yeah, I think it's the most popular site from parents, particularly mums, but mums and dads. Started about 10 years ago with 2 mums who had a really bad summer holiday. And they had a real issue with it. They thought they'd been missold, and they got onto the site and started it off. Now it's got 175 categories, everything to do with families, from holidays and tents and children's clothes and stuff. It's a real badge for a company to have a Mumsnet stamp on it. They had awards last year for the first time. They got them again this year. So as a business, using an influencer group like Mumsnet, having your products recommended on there is a real badge for future sales. I think it's a really exciting use of influencers groups. So we put this in the win category, recruiting through communities, recruiting new customers because of the good feeling in a community. Sony down there is a cost and yield one. Sony had that camera is a compact camera and SLR combined. It's a hybrid. This example I'm going to give you was in Asia. Apparently the market really wanted a camera like that. They weren't happy with either compact or SLRs. They wanted a combined. The market really wanted it. And Sony said, we're pretty fed up with retailers who you spend ages talking to stock your product, and it takes ages to ramp up the distribution. That takes time. In that time, especially in the electronics market, the competition comes in, and your price premium that you've got with a new product goes right down because you have competition. So what Sony did was to build up a real groundswell of influence by identifying influencers through social media campaigns, identifying the influencers, getting them to trial it, getting them to write about it. Retailers were knocking on Sony's door saying, we want this product. When's it coming out? We want it. They ramped distribution up really, really quickly. The figures aren't on here, but are in the notes to this. They got to market 30% more quickly. They got up to speed. And 25% increase in product yield, which means basically they kept their price for longer, their premium price, before they had to reduce it. And they're massive benefits. Some more examples here. So I think this is quite a well-used example, the Dell Customer Interaction Center. I don't know if anyone's talked about it today, but it's the way contact centers are moving in pretty much all of our business-to-business clients, where the contact center no longer deals just with the phone calls coming in, or the emails, or the texts, but it deals more with the social feeds as well, and is empowered to respond to them, or certain sections of the contact center are empowered to respond to them. So I'll respond to the Twitter feed quickly because it's engaging. I'll respond to the issue on Facebook. I'll take the case from Facebook, and if it's a problem, I'll put it in a case management system, and we'll work with it. So the contact center is effectively the hub, the customer interaction center, if you like. This one is a pharmaceutical example, and is an example of social and digital technologies at a strategic account level. So this is a pharma company dealing with regional health authorities, large hospitals, major stuff, major strategic account management, and connecting those customers who are consultants and doctors and payers, as they're called in government, through an expert gateway to expert resources. And those expert resources could be anywhere in the world. And we're seeing more of this happening. I'm sure IBM get involved in this a great deal. We're seeing a lot of this happening. Cisco are big champions of this, where you're connecting people through technologies and through ideas. And a consultant in the UK wants to deal with a consultant in the US or Australia or South Africa, because they are connected. It's truly a global world at that level. So providing facilities has helped this pharma company engage differently with strategic accounts, which is why it's in the keep piece, because the engagement is significant. Standard Bank, this is on the investment side. Now, investment banks are really, really secretive organizations. And the particular example I've got here was using Salesforce.com and their social collaboration bit, which is called Chatter, that some of you will know. But it could have been anything. The technology really is incidental. But Standard Bank there was a telco which was based in the Middle East that wanted to set up or refinance an operation in South America, which involved going to the stock market in London and New York, and the account was managed out of South Africa. So, really, really global situation. The Standard Bank internal guys used Chatter to develop the deal. The deal ended up being cash and loans and bonds, and it was a particularly complex deal. And every time something happened on Chatter, people were updated on it. So it brought the time scale for the deal, and actually the quality of the deal, right down in terms of how quickly they could get the deal out. And they had to keep the client informed, so the person that was in the Middle East, where the client effectively was led from, knew exactly what was going on. So, it's an example of social collaboration, which I think is very powerful, but particularly as it's an investment bank, and they are very secretive. I mean, the word chatter, isn't great, is it? Because it seems like it's just gossip. But this was around constructing a very complex finance deal. Does anyone know Innocentive? Does anyone know that? It's the first web global external community designed where a company will say, I've got a problem, but I can't solve it. Can you solve it? So it brings together people with a need and supposedly experts. This is a couple of greasing the power grid, finding a faster path to plugging in generators. This one's safe containment and processing of human waste in emergency situations. So it's pretty interesting stuff. But the people will put this on there, and experts around the world will try and answer it and solve it. There's prizes from 10 to 100,000. So far, in the last 6 years, they've given away $7 million. So it's an external collaboration site which is helping some companies solve problems. And you've got people like DuPont and Alpha and BASF involved in this, and Procter & Gamble also use it. Very quickly, Premier Hotels. I don't know if anyone's used this app. Incredibly successful app. So Premier's issue was, we have 250,000 people a month coming into our website, 1% of them convert. Mostly because people were on the website traveling, wanting a Premier in that night, and it was just too difficult on the phone. So they produced a phone app, which you can download on the phone. It recognizes what platform you're on and downloads the app. Now half of their daily business comes through this app. 50% of their daily business comes through this app. And it's a business-to-business example, which is why I put it in here, because it's mostly business travelers that do that. So 50% of the daily business comes through this app. This one is, you can't read the detail, it doesn't really matter, but it's a listening thing where these are different car companies. This is Ford, this is Honda, and you can listen to what's going on. And listening is often about not just hearing specifically what people are saying, but grouping stuff together. Anyone that's done any listening, it's about grouping stuff together in a sensible way. Ford here did the grouping, which, as I mentioned earlier, recognized that the Ford car, the KA, had a safety issue as far as consumers were concerned, where it actually hasn't got a safety issue. So that they could use this listening to not just deal with consumers, but to deal with the dealerships. Use cases, as people call them, through Win, Keep, Develop. We've actually covered all of these, all those examples cover all of these. So when you've got time, if you're interested in this, have a look at these use cases and see if you can apply them to your business. So the basic building blocks. So to do this, what needs to change in the organization? We've got, there's 9 areas, and I'm not going to go through every point on the slides. I'm really not going to do that. It's not what I want to do. I want to whistle through it because I think it's better that way. It starts with insight and planning. We talked about structured and unstructured data earlier. We had the McKinsey guy talking about big data. I think a lot of the companies we're dealing with now see insight from data as being the key differentiator over product, price, and anything else. They see insight enabling them to develop a different service experience which will keep customers coming into their business. So insight from data is key. Using structured and unstructured is key. The McKinsey survey in 2011 showed that the biggest issue in companies was the ability to generate and leverage deep customer insights from data. All of our clients are looking for good insight people. All of our clients are. So, good insight people, people that can understand data from a business level are sought after, and I suspect salaries will increase relatively dramatically as the big companies get involved in this. So capability is a big issue. Customer experience design, you probably can't read this either, I'm afraid. But this is a life cycle, moving from path to purchase, through onboarding of new customers, through business as usual, through servicing them, to encouraging advocacy. So you've got referrals and testimonials influencing the evaluation stage of path to purchase. These colours, we just did a piece of analysis with a B2B client, and we coloured it in based on the opportunity for digital, social, and mobile at each stage here. So the pink areas are the areas for this particular client where there's big opportunity to improve the figures by having social, digital, and mobile in some shape or form. So one of the things I suggest you do if you're interested in this is to go through your own life cycle, which will be similar to this, I suspect, but you'll have your own nuances, and to think where you can improve stuff. Where can you improve awareness? When your buyers look for your product, how can their evaluation of you be better? Maybe through testimonials from others or whatever, etc. Media and channels. I'm using, I don't know if, is it Richard? Is he still here? From Base One. The stats there, 500 UK business-to-business buyers. Where do you go for product information? Basically, the best content channels are still company websites, search, press articles, and advertising. That's, business customers still go to those places first. As you can see, 2010, 2011, there's some changes there, but basically people still use those content sites. But there is a noticeable shift towards digital and social, and a move from physical trade shows to virtual. There is a shift in that, and you can see that in the stats. So media and channels will change, of course, and depending on whether it's content or sales and communications, you'll use a blend of these. Agility and workflow we talked about. So the ability to get an insight and to move it to the right place in the organization for action is what large companies find very difficult. It takes resource, it takes workflow processes. Maybe it needs a rapid response. It may not need a rapid response. But somebody needs to know about it and say, OK, I understand. There's an insight there. And if we can speed up the insight to action, which sometimes can be 6, 9, 12 months in an organization. Customer satisfaction surveys, a few years ago, would be sent out. People would fill them in. They'd come back. They'd be analyzed and sliced and diced and pureed. And then something might or might not happen 12 months later. Those days surely have gone now. The days, we should be able to compress that to a matter of days or at most weeks. We call it sense and respond. Sense what's going on and respond through the organization. This is a workflow which, is obviously a high-level workflow, which probably applies to all of you here, whether you're a small business or not, but you'll just do it less formally if you're a small business. So you've got your buyer community. You're managing them through traditional channels, through key account management, through sales, through telephone account management, whatever it is you're using. But they're also doing stuff up here. Some of them, not all of them. Some of them are in some of the social spaces or on your company website or message boards. And maybe there's a content exchange going on. Maybe you're putting content out there to encourage them in. And there's some listening tools. So you'll be listening to what's going on at a high level, exchanging content, and also managing at this level. Into the CRM system, if we call it that. And the CRM system would then move into the enterprise team. And it could be marketing owning it, but customer service would be involved, logistics might be involved, ideation. So that's the idea, taking an idea and making it happen. And then we'll go back to the customer with the insight. So it's a high-level workflow. I hope it's kind of straightforward. I hope it makes sense. But those sorts of tools have been put in place by most of the big clients we're working with. And at some level, smaller businesses can work like that too. Measurement's a big change in socially enabled business companies in that we're all after superior business performance, and we know that comes from customer behavior. So winning more customers or keeping them longer or developing their value, that's basically where sales come from. But the socially enabled business has a management view which is it's as much about engagement as it is about sales and cost. I think a lot of companies now, and certainly 5, 10 years ago, the boards would focus on revenue and cost. And if they can get those right, then profit will come out of it. But if you focus on those two things, you try and maximize sales all the time, customers don't like that. Every time you speak to them, oh, do you want to buy this? They don't like that. With cost, if you try and reduce costs, reduce training costs, reduce product development costs, maybe increase queues in a bank because you've reduced the number of people in the bank, that also affects customer engagement. So if you focus on sales and costs as two entities, you're actually going to destroy customer engagement. And a socially enabled business doesn't. Of course, senior guys worry about profit, sales, and cost. They have to. When I deal with analysts and stockbrokers, I'm trying to get them to understand that it's engagement of customers that leads to that. And that's the philosophy of a socially enabled business. It's designed to engage customers in a different way, in a better way, which then hopefully leads to better sales, which should lead to better business performance. And then there's a line of sight. So where does engagement come from? It comes from a great customer experience. That often comes from engaged and competent colleagues delivering that experience, which comes from the leadership and infrastructure that the colleagues have to work in. So there's a line of sight in these metrics. You could call it a balanced scorecard, but it's a different type of balanced scorecard than the Kaplan and Norton type scorecards. Brand and proposition, of course, in a socially enabled business. If you're going to become more socially enabled, you're going to become more open, more transparent, then you're going to, you're putting your head above the parapet. And there will be occasions when someone shoots at you. These are all examples. All the links are there, so you can click on these links and have a look at them. So there's some brilliant ones. I love Kate's pissing on the pizza one earlier. But there's some crackers down here. And some of them really good examples of how to handle. In fact, I think the Domino's one was handled very, very well in the end. But there's some really good ones there, how not to do it and how to do it. But whatever, the main point of this slide for this session is that it really does need some leadership understanding that to do this, you're going to get some bad news. There's going to be stuff that happens that you don't like. And we have to have policies and ways of working that manages and contains that and deals with it in a way that customers like. So it requires leadership commitment. This whole thing requires leadership commitment. I left data towards the end because you know, data and IT is really important for this whole piece, but really it's the philosophy that is important. But some of the IT developments that we're seeing in some of the bigger companies are getting quite complicated. And we're seeing a shift where CIOs are thinking, well, we need to simplify this. So we need all these different functions, but actually we need to reduce the number of suppliers. So what we're expecting to see in the social space is a reduction in the number of different companies that are offering systems as the market matures. But there's, you know, JanRain, you can sign into your local site using your social IDs, Web Trends monitor what's going on in the web, Radian6 is a listening platform, Salesforce.com is a CRM platform, etc. There's a number of different components of this. And actually, plans to increase the use of technology, again from the IBM survey, social media, customer analytics, CRM, mobile applications, you know, they're all, people have got growth plans around all of the things we're talking about here. This is the CMO survey. And this second slide is percent of CMOs reporting underpreparedness. So do they feel underprepared? Well, the data explosion is the big one here. Social media, the second one. Growth of channels and device choices is the third one. So, you know, and these aren't social media skewed surveys. This is, you know, talking to CMOs and CIOs about what their issues are. So what we're talking about here with IT and data and socially enabled business is what people are worrying about. And I think that's fascinating. People and culture, this is the little survey that we did on the IDM site. The impact of social, near real-time customer management and mobile will have, or has had, a significant impact on the way my business works. So 40% reckoned that it had they agree totally with that, significant business transformation. 43% said, I agree strongly, there's an impact on many departments. And a few others said, well, mostly marketing or no impact, and I'm not sure. But you know, most of you think, or the ones that respond to this, think it has significant business impact. You know, it's not something that marketing can do anymore by itself. It's enterprise-wide. So direction and leadership, this is the last point, really. To set up a socially enabled business demands leaders to get a vision in place to engage customers differently using the sorts of things we've talked about. So the vision can't just be a vision that says, oh, we want to get closer to customers. It must be linked to some business benefits. And the way we do it is to link through win, keep, develop, and cost, because they're really the revenue and profit drivers of the business. And the things you've got to do, we've covered very briefly each of these points in the last few minutes. Each of them has something different going on there that we've got to think about. So if you want to become a socially enabled business, you've got to think through this model and get a vision for where you want to be and begin the change process. And you know, in terms of how to progress, it's exactly that. So this is my final slide. You really want to assess your organization against best practice or world class, where you think you should be. Develop your vision of customer centricity, maybe using the use cases and the life cycle that we went through earlier. But make sure you link it to a business case, because you can't just do this without a business case. And then prioritize actions. And what we found, and our surveys telling us, is that organizations that are embarking on this, it's very, very much an evolution. It's absolutely not a revolution. And it's an evolution because they've got to prove it along the way. So it's bite-sized chunks. It's step by step. It's not a big, well, we're going to do things wildly differently. No one's got the appetite for that in this market. It's about saying, yeah, we think it's right, but we'll do it bit by bit. So prioritization is key to make sure that you get some confidence that the program actually is having an impact. So, thank you very much.